Hello, happy January. My name is Christina Luna, and this is a 2024 year ahead energetic overview. I make these every year. I will take a look at what the astrology is transforming us through in the course of a year. And even though I see the astrology not, limited by a calendar year, I actually see it in these longer cycles. It's really helpful to know what the flow of the next year is going to be, especially if you're planning to be ultra present with yourself. And so I'm just going to share a little bit about the way that I see astrology. And if you are new to me, maybe this will resonate with you. From my perspective, astrology actually is a way to map and navigate the psyche and the psychology of our inner landscape. I literally imagine that there's a roundtable discussion happening in our minds, and that there are people sitting around the table, and they each have an individual voice, motive. They've got desires. They're trying to evolve something within us, and they're all in conversation with each other. And so if you're the kind of person that has experiences with your subconscious reality that feels sort of like a roundtable discussion, my kind of astrology is for you. And the next year is going to be a very interesting roundtable discussion for all of us. And the primary mode of experiencing is going to have to do with our deepest, most honest and authentic frequency. And I didn't want to have to use that word because it seems a little like abstract, but the way that I can describe frequency is, let's imagine that you're about to plant a garden. And the reason that you're planting the garden and the emotion that you're having while you plant the garden, that is actually going to flavor the soil and the seeds and the harvest. And so the frequency in which you plant this garden is actually going to change the way the plants grow and the way that the fruit of that harvest taste and feel. And so what we're doing this year is we're really clarifying our frequency and from where we're making decisions. And so I hope that this overview gives you a sense of perspective. It causes you to, in some way, slow down and pause to do the inner conversation with your roundtable discussion, and to actually really consciously and deliberately decide and move and feel. And it's like you have a deck of cards. You have a deck of cards and you're deciding the way you want to play them based on the feelings you have inside. So I hope that this overview gives you a sense that can help you slow down so you can investigate what it is that motivation or frequency is from the inside. I actually have a presentation that has some structure, and I'm going to open it right now because I work really well with structure. So I'm going to share my screen here. All right. All right, so this is the guidance for the year of 2024, and the year ahead is the year of the wood dragon. I'll talk about that more when we get to February. But essentially, I have been tracking these elements and kind of animal archetypes for a number of years now, and I recognize that they're a collective vibe, and the collective vibe for this year is very much one that's calling us into our expressive power, our mythical power, and the growth, the wood, the flourishing that happens from calling in that power. And there are a lot of milestone checkpoints for opening and expanding that power throughout the year. First, I'm going to talk about some of the big shifts that are going on. And every astrologer is going to be talking about how Pluto is moving into Aquarius on the 20th of January. This is starting a big new 20-year cycle. And when I really lean into the way that the preview of 2023 felt and what we can see more of in 2024, leading into the next 20-year cycle, this is where that frequency piece comes in. Aquarius is a fixed air sign, and fixed air signs are, the fixed air sign of Aquarius is essentially the collective truths that we hold as a culture or society. So if you think about an organization and the culture of that organization, the bylaws of that organization, or the unspoken laws of that culture, that is the fixed kind of air concept of that culture. And when we move into a space where that becomes the evolutionary point, we're going to be asked to check all of the fixed thought forms that we inherited from our culture and measure that against what our unique expression actually is. The opposite of Aquarius is Leo, and Leo rules the individuated self, the creative self. The self that creates and explores and plays and is like no other self. And so while we have this point of evolution moving through Aquarius, what's most important is to remember that we are a separate piece in the larger tapestry, and that what we contribute to that tapestry matters. It can change the color of the tapestry. It can create movements that overthrow old paradigms of thought that are maybe ready for an upgrade. And Pluto gives us an entry point. In some ways, Pluto is like a sentinel that stands on the boundary lines of our consciousness and says, there's nothing beyond this point. And when it moves through a sign, it oftentimes will drudge up and ask, is this still authentic? Is this still, do you still want this, or do we need to get rid of this? And so as it moves through the sign of Aquarius, we're also going to be asked, is this true? Do we feel, did we inherit this opinion about marriage or business? Did we inherit this opinion about what it means to be a woman? Or a human for that matter? Did we inherit these limitations based on where the culture or the society drew those lines? And as we question that in our lives, we will come up with a new answer, a subjective answer, a more authentic and true answer from within ourselves. And so expect conflict between what your innermost authentic truth is and what we've unconsciously just accepted about life. And we would have experienced some of that starting last year, but this year it's going to really give us a nice, solid, well, I'll go over the trajectory of the year, but it's going to give us a nice, solid period of time to really sit in all of that and clarify it before retreating back into the old paradigm for a short period of time before we step into the next 20 years. So I hope that you're tracking all of that. So that is the kind of bigger background flavor of what's happening this year. Next, we've got, I'm going to actually talk about Saturn. Saturn is moving through Pisces right now as well. And the benefit of that is so Saturn is a part of our psyche that is wanting to create form. It's trying to actually manifest something in a structure. It not only does it define where the limits of possibility and reality are, but it also wants to bring things into form. And when Saturn is in a space like Pisces, which is like the collective unconscious, it's the environment in which we experience reality. It is the fluid in which our subjective reality creates it's the sandbox, okay? It's a sandbox, and then we're basically taking the sand and creating an experience for ourselves. And this sandbox is the Pisces experience where everything exists. And so we have the ability to pull things from the sandbox and then create our own castles. With Saturn in this place, it's more important than ever for us to investigate, well, then what is it that I would like to create? If everything is possible, where am I focused? Am I focused on a limitation? Am I focused on a rule? Am I focused on what's possible or not possible? Or am I actually stretching my faith and my ability to create so that something completely new can form from the ether? So that is something that's also available to us this year. And another reason why it's so important for us to investigate what we've been unconsciously accepting about the parameters of life itself. I'm also going to talk a little bit about Chiron. Chiron is a member at the table that indicates, well, it's the wound that we are always trying to heal. And every person has a personal Chiron placement, but Chiron for the collective is actually moving through a space called Aries. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac because it initiates the spark of life. It's the initial fire that begins any cycle of manifestation. And with Chiron moving through this area, we are healing our experience with our ability to create, to exist, to materialize, to be even incarnated. And so there's a lot of healing going on this year specifically, not only because we have Chiron and Aries, but also because we have something called the North Node, which is a point of evolution. We have something that North Node is going to be coming into a conjunction with that healing. So part of our evolution this year is to heal the very, very primal human spark that begins anything. It's that initial yes to any new endeavor. And it's that spark that we then have to nourish. We have to then grow it and steward it in order for it to come into fruition. But that initial spark and the ability to continue to nourish that spark is healing in a really strong way this year. And oh yeah, I'll talk about the way that I actually see that being activated as we move through the months of the year. So for the entire year, the point of evolution is acknowledging the initial spark within us, the initial yes. It's a good year for clarifying what a hell yes is and how we sometimes use the psyche to talk ourselves out of it. If you can slow the process down and imagine that there's a part of us that's trying to heal, and the only way it will heal is if it is given a chance to speak at the table, even if the idea doesn't seem like it will fly, even if the idea doesn't feel like it can come to fruition. We let it have an honored seat at our table and we write those ideas down, and then we can apply the other mechanisms of our psyche to test whether or not that idea is going to manifest and come into fruition and eventually help us to come into greater wholeness and be more present with all the people and all the experiences, etc. So I hope that you can see how all of these pieces are related, that giving a space at the table for the good idea, giving a space at the table for knowing that our good ideas are unique, and maybe there's a field of ideas that floats over everyone, and maybe everyone has a similar idea, but how willing are you to entertain that idea? And how willing are you to know that as a creator and as a unique expression, that your take on that idea is going to be new, and it's going to be exhilarating to bring that idea to fruition, and that when we do, it ultimately could change the fabric of the cultural field that we're a part of. Those ideas are going to shift the fixed paradigm of what our culture accepts. And we're in a time where that culture is massively, the fiber of the old culture is pulling, and there are holes and there are fibers falling off. Like, you can see it happening all over the world right now, that old paradigm of thought that kept cultures together, it's just ripping. And it's our opportunity right now to be a part of the gold filament that repairs or reconstructs something new in the cultural fiber. So it's a good time for thought leaders. If you feel that you have an opinion or a thought or a experience that can in some way lead thought in a whole new way, this is the year for you. Finding the wood dragon within you, the dragon that puts it into form, that is going to be the gold that essentially contributes to the turning of these larger cycles of humanity. So that's my call to arms. Two of the other planets I'll just talk about briefly. Uranus is a planet that archetypally is most closely related to Prometheus. Uranus and Prometheus, that character, if you know about the Promethean myth, Prometheus is the god that stole fire from Zeus, stole fire from the gods in mythology. The gods kept the fire, and the humans were dependent on the gods to create anything. So the gods demanded their devotion in order for the humans to create things. And Prometheus loved the humans so deeply and believed in their ability to create that he stole fire from the gods and gave it to them. And this was very disruptive. It was very upsetting to Zeus. And on some level, Zeus didn't believe that the humans could responsibly handle the fire of creation. Primarily, I believe, because humans are mortal and they have fear, and if you give them the fire to create, they could essentially create things that could destroy them inadvertently. And so while Zeus was being sort of a protective, maybe overbearing kind of force, Prometheus had so much faith that eventually, if you give humans that fire and the ability and time to practice with it, they would be able to use it and liberate themselves and create something that has never been created before. So Prometheus is definitely, or Uranus is definitely associated with the liberation of our ability to create as a collective. It's not an individual fire, but I believe that the fire that we grant ourselves is directly related to the thought paradigms of a certain society or culture. If a society does not believe, then if we give our power to that society, then we're essentially agreeing to the rules of that society. And we're in a unique moment now where we can create some change there, especially since Uranus is moving through an earth sign that tests the sustainability of an idea. And so this, for a number of years, but even more so this year, because of some extra placements that are going on this year, we are going to really have to investigate how we're tangibly manifesting and creating using our fire. Again, this is all related to this whole energy of the year. I mean, this is, if you were here to kind of get yeah, this is my brand of astrology. I hope that this resonates. I'm really allowing the limiting I'm not watering myself down here. I'm really like letting the let out because I'm trying to practice exactly what I preach. And this is me sharing exactly the way I see it, exactly the way I feel it from this really high overview before we go really granularly. So here we have Uranus. Uranus and Jupiter will come into a conjunction. Jupiter is a planet that will essentially expand with energy anything that it touches, and it's going to come into a conjunction with Uranus this year. So if you are claiming your power to create something that's real and sustainable, that meets your needs, that actually is a congruent and tangible and resourced experience of life, if you believe that about life and you believe that you have the power to create that, the expander Jupiter is going to cross and put even more energy into that this year. And so that power doesn't just deliver power to those that are consciously wielding it. That power is available in a neutral way. So if you're giving your power to old paradigms of thought, you will also have the ability to create more of the old. Because Pluto is kind of breaking down, there will be a moment at some point where the old will eventually go, but I believe we're being given the power to create whatever we subjectively want to create. And so investigating your authentic, deepest, and most authentic desires, that is going to be mandatory this year. And we've been prepared. I believe 2020 prepared us, 2021 prepared us, 2022, we've been being prepared. So at this moment in time, we're positioned with as much consciousness as we could possibly hold. If you're watching this and you haven't turned it off already, you are in the space of, yes, I am consciously, like, I see that I am a creator and this is a sandbox reality, and my vibration and my frequency attracts experiences to me that I co-create with, and wow, I have a lot of power and responsibility because of that. If you're watching this, I know that you probably have a hunch that that's true. So let's go into how we're going to use all of this and the flow that we're going to be surfing basically for the next year. In January, we start out with a lot of passion. We start out with a lot of desire. We have some fiery big ideas and we want to materialize them. So there's, in some ways, a lot of ambition that we start with in January. And that ambition is fantastic. Just know that we will be tested. Our decisions must come from a place of strategy. And the strategy, if you were going to break it all the way down, that strategy is about integrity. So the words for January are, we stand behind our passionate truth with integrity. So this implies that we will be very passionate, and we're going to need to slow down and investigate how to use that passion with as much integrity as possible, which I'm not sure how everyone relates to the word integrity, but the way I relate to the word integrity is it's a grounded and centered feeling. It feels coherent. It feels as though my body is saying yes, my emotions are saying yes, my mind is saying yes, and my soul is saying yes. It's like a locking in. And sometimes when those pieces lock in, the answer might not be what one piece thought was the answer. And this is why that roundtable discussion is so important. We have parts that are like, yes, I desire to go in this direction, or I desire to stay like calm. I desire to not show up. I desire to, and if you actually sat at the table and gave a real patient listen to every part of ourselves, we would probably find that the most integrous thing to do is maybe not always like as pleasurable as it could be, or maybe not always as comfortable as it could be, but it is the right thing to do. And sometimes doing the right thing feels hard. And yet that's how I experience integrity. At least I know from every part of my being that that's, I don't know. So I hope that you all have your own definitions of integrity, but the reason why the integrity piece is so important is because if we're creating from that frequency, the harvest of what we receive will also be in the frequency of that. And it's the way that we set a standard for ourselves. And when we set a standard, we're basically demanding that the sandbox reality delivers something within that standard, which will create changes. And we're seeing in the very first week of January changes happening almost immediately. As we're approaching January 20th, our powers to create energetically are being turned up steadily every single week leading up to the 20th. And then the way I feel is, imagine that you are being given a magic wand on the 20th, and everything that your inner frequency is begins to materialize in real time. And so this first week of January is giving some strong, hard lessons about what it means to be in integrity and what it means to make changes that are in alignment with that integrity, even if they're uncomfortable or hard. We have extra support with this, with Mars moving into Capricorn on the 4th. And so this gives us the power. Mars is a character within our psyche that it rules our discipline, our movement. It can cut off and decide things that are no longer going to be a part of our reality. So this is a good time to make a strong line or make a boundary or set that standard. And we're really feeling the need for that in January, in the first week of January. And leading into the next week where we have that new moon in Capricorn, I believe that that new moon is going to show us a very tangible picture of what is possible when we hold our discipline and we really like keep that steady behavioral momentum toward the ultimate manifestation or legacy that we'd like to experience in life. On the 13th, when Mercury enters Capricorn, this is where we're going to be like communicating more fully about that legacy. I think we start out internally relating to it and just doing it quietly on our own. I don't see a lot of huge, like it feels humble is what it feels like. It feels quite humble, and it feels like it's personal, and it feels like we're doing it for really for ourselves and for our life. But I do see that beyond the 13th, there may be some kind of public announcements of, hey, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm committed to, and this is what I'm going to be following through with in the coming year. So if you're a business owner, the 13th might be an excellent time to launch some kind of offer or share some kind of new value statement for your business, or invite people into new containers that you're creating for others. And of course, all of this is in alignment with, because I have a unique voice, I have a unique expression, I can shift, I can contribute to the fabric of community, and I care so deeply about this legacy that I'd like to contribute, that I'm willing to do all of this in order to stand behind it. Capricorn definitely rules that kind of legacy sensation within us, the thing where we find that motivation to do something that's beyond ourselves. So then on the 20th, listen, the pressure is going to build all the way up to the 20th. And on the 20th, we're going to feel like, all right, we're going to do this. The sun and Pluto will both enter Aquarius at the same time, and it will feel in some ways like a point of no return. And I likened it to receiving a magic wand. If someone gave you a magic wand and said, all right, practice time is over, here you go. Whatever your vibration is, whatever your frequency is, you're going to begin experiencing that now. And so it begins. And very shortly after, that's when Venus enters Capricorn, and essentially we begin to experience and receive and feel the representation of what we've committed to. So let's pretend that on the 4th of January, you committed to some kind of disciplined practice. I would imagine that by the 23rd, you're beginning to really see the harvest of that practice. And you're going to be understanding how powerful your ability to create and manifest actually is. And the 25th, where we have that full moon, and Mercury and Mars will be in a conjunction. So let me break that down. The full moon in Leo is going to be opening up and expanding the parts of us that are acknowledging that we are unique individuals with a unique expression and voice. That acknowledgement comes right after we start to see some of our manifestations in real time. Like, oh my gosh, I am able to change the fabric. I am contributing something unique and special. I do have my own flavor to add to the soup of existence. So that happens at the same time that our mind and our actions align in Capricorn to commit even more fully to that process. And it's squared to Chiron. So remember when I told you Chiron is the character that's helping us to heal the spark sitting at the table with all the good ideas. So here we're like, wow, if I have the power and I have a unique expression and I'm now manifesting all of this, what other ideas do I have? Let me give them space to be heard at the table. So on the 25th, give yourself the space to listen to the good ideas that are trying to surface, and don't, with the proven power that you now have, you're going to give it even more attention than maybe you've ever given it before. And then on the 27th, that planet Uranus, the Promethean fire, begins to move direct in Taurus, and it'll be also happening at the same time that the sun in Aquarius is in a square to Jupiter. So on the 27th, you've got the tangible manifestation of your creative power, the ability to actually impact through tangible means. You have that happening at the same time that your awareness of your impact on the fabric of society is in an alignment that wants to grow it even more. So Jupiter wants to tangibly expand that impact even more. So the 27th is, whoa, look at everything that's actually possible. I'm giving my ideas space to be heard, and I actually believe that I can do this. And this brings us into the latter couple of days of January, where we have a number of different trines. I break down, there's far more alignments that are broken down in the planner. They're literally like almost every day there's something happening, but I can be quite, I can expand things quite a lot. So I tried to narrow it down, but the whole last part of January is harmonious movement that happens very quickly to support the awareness that we just came into with Uranus direct and with the sun squaring Jupiter. Yes, we can do this. Let's go. So I see very fast, rapid movement. The wand is working. The rocket is launched. It is go time. But it took quite a lot for us to feel responsible enough and conscious enough in our integrity to really take that wand. In February, we are being asked to be the captain of the ship and to make decisions with mastery and higher perspective. So the most important thing for us to be doing in February is to have as high a perspective as possible, to see the bigger picture as much as we possibly can, and to make decisions from that past, present, future perspective. We've got the sun in Aquarius, we've got Pluto in Aquarius now. Pluto knows that this is the beginning of shifting the tapestry of society. Mercury's in Capricorn, Venus is in Capricorn, Mars, they're still doing the work of that. And I haven't talked a lot about Black Moon Lilith. Maybe it's a good time to talk about that, because when we zoom up way above, we can actually see the part of us that yeah, I'll talk about that. It's time. Okay. So there's a part inside of our heads that will always kind of make us feel scared, kind of make us feel like, what are you thinking? Who do you think you are? It's the part that we label the imposter. Sometimes it seems like a protector. Sometimes it just shames us. It's like shame coming from nowhere. And this part I lovingly have identified within the natal chart as Black Moon Lilith. And right now we have this character, even though everyone has a personal flavor of Black Moon Lilith, we have a collective Black Moon Lilith right now that's actually pushing on the button of integrity so hard. She's in Virgo right now, and Virgo wants everything to be whole, complete, perfected, done well, right, strong, in integrity. Virgo actually is the energy of bringing things in all together into integrity. And so because we have Black Moon Lilith in this space, we are going to have this internal character saying, oh, really? Are you in integrity? Do you live your life that way? Are you going to be able to show up for that? While you talk a big game, like it's the part that would kind of speak over the spark of ideas. If you had a little idea that was sparking, that's like, I have a new idea. Black Moon Lilith might be sitting at the table being like, you think you're going to pull that off? And I want to call it out because in February, if you give a lot of power to that voice can be holding the magic wand. And we want to be very conscious of who gets to hold the magic wand in the frequency of our roundtable discussion. Who are we trusting? Hopefully, we're letting our soul, we're letting the observer of the table hold the wand. If you are able to see the roundtable discussion and see that these are all parts of us having a conversation and that you yourself are the observer taking it in with a kind of observational perspective, you can say, I hear what you're saying, and I hear what you're saying, and I hear what you're saying, and I'm going to decide what I'm going to do. I'm going to decide. I'm not going to give the wand or the power to any one part of myself because everyone deserves to have a little piece of a little piece in my awareness. And I'm not going to shun anyone or put them in a corner. I'm going to actually allow every part of me to have a say at this table so that I can make an informed decision that feels like I'm in my highest integrity. And so February is a month where it's going to be more important than ever to acknowledge and not be grabbed by one individual part of ourselves. And so the first thing that we're going to experience stepping into February is that Mercury will begin to report from the higher perspective in Aquarius. It'll look at the Pluto report and say, yeah, Pluto, it looks like you're about to restructure some serious collective energies here. I'm seeing that, So luckily we've got that help. And if you can let yourself have that higher perspective, it will serve everything that happens. The sun will square Uranus. The sun is our awareness looking to the part of us that wants to create with that fire, with that passion, wants to create massive change. And so pay attention to that and know that conflict within, it could feel like something's got to give. I just want to, February 8th, we might all be like, I change for change's sake. I just got to do this. But if you change for change's sake, that's like giving the magic wand just to Uranus and being like, just create whatever you want, Uranus, just change everything. And that's not always the best use of Uranian power. In fact, if you sometimes, I'm not saying it's a bad thing to create massive change for change's sake, because it will definitely destabilize things and give you different opportunities. But will it be ultimately the most integrous decision? Is it possible that those changes can happen, but we're kind of trying to bypass some sort of work that is necessary to create that change just by, it's sort of like knowing that you've got some real work to do in your relationship, and rather than committing to the work because of how rewarding the outcome of that work will be, it's like, I'm just going to break up. That way I don't have to do the work and So just be aware, it might be some kind of energy like that on the 8th, and hold that larger perspective and know that it's possible to make changes from a space of integrity and observation that aren't just to destabilize your life. The new moon in Aquarius and the Chinese New Year starts on the 9th and 10th. This is where that changeover occurs. And, Aquarius does rule kind of the collective perspective, the collective vibe, the collective frequency. And so that's why these animal archetypes and elements are important, because if we know that a massive changeover is happening for the collective, and that we're stepping from, it was the water rabbit. We had a water rabbit year last year that was asking us to be very, very sensitive and very intuitive, and to like really navigate the intuitive spaces of ourselves, which I believe prepared us for the wood dragon, so that we could have a relationship with our intuition and be nimble and trust ourselves to move from that sensitivity with a lot of power. So that changeover happens, and now the wand is in our hands. So hopefully that intuitive muscle has been properly integrated. And that changeover happens on the 9th, and then we have Mars moving to Aquarius. Every planet that moves into Aquarius now in this month is going to cross over Pluto. And Pluto is saying, you know what, like this whole thing, this system is broken. The system is ready for a turnover. The system is seeking your contribution. And so every time a planet crosses over that spot, we may find ourselves on a personal level changing, when Mars crosses over, changing our behaviors, so that we're letting go of an old paradigm of a way of being from a previous time, from the last 15 years of the way we operated. When Venus crosses over, we're feeling a changeover internally, like, no, it's time for this upgrade. I'm ready to step into a new personal experience of my body. So this is how the momentum of February begins. And as the planets then move into Pisces, we're navigating the sandbox very differently from this space. It like opens the sandbox even more fully. If before we were operating from an unconscious paradigm or law of thought of what is possible, we were only creating from the sandbox from that limited perspective. But as we move into Pisces this year, we're seeing the sandbox completely differently. And one of the metaphors I would like to use now, it comes from a TED Talk I watched years ago about a woman who had some kind of near-death experience, where she talked about how life is this like giant, endless warehouse. And that before her experience, she walked around with a flashlight, and the flashlight just shined on a couple of things that she was focused on. And then she was materializing the experience of whatever her flashlight shined on. But when she had this near-death experience, all the lights in the warehouse turned on, and she saw that there was so much more possible, so much more available than what her limited flashlight was showing her. And she could never unsee that, and it actually changed the way she used her flashlight. And I believe that we are having an experience like that this year. And as we move into Pisces, we're understanding that the warehouse is this sandbox reality is full of so many more opportunities and experiences than we ever imagined. And when the North Node on the 19th comes into a conjunction with Chiron, Chiron, remember, is the part of us that has these new sparks of ideas. The North Node is the point of evolution that we are all like expanding and evolving through. And when that comes into a conjunction, it's like, if all of these things are possible, if you're in the warehouse, where will you shine your perfect and beautiful flashlight? Are you going to shine it like a little beam of focus, or are you going to expand it out and try and see as much as you can? Are you going to move around with curiosity, or are you going to just look at the stuff that you've already looked at because you don't know what you'll find? And these are the choices that we get to have. And I believe that moment on the 19th is going to give us the opportunity to expand that perspective, and just in time, because when Venus comes into a conjunction with Mars on the 22nd, that's like it's like an integrity checkpoint. When Venus and Mars come together, we are going to be able to move and behave and like press into and decide with discipline with Mars in alignment with what we desire and want to receive and experience with Venus. And so the 22nd, it clarifies the way we want to use that flashlight and what comes from that. And then with Mercury and Pisces, now it's the time to just explore the space, explore the possibilities. The full moon in Virgo, while Venus is in square to Jupiter, are on the 24th. This is a key moment where we have to acknowledge, even though all things are possible, what does this individual person, this like, sure, my soul is infinite and maybe I've experienced multiple lives and maybe all things are possible, but what does this Christina Luna really, really desire for her life? Or what is she really about? Or who is she really? This is a moment where we get to re-clarify and define that. And it's pushing us to ask even more deeply, and what do I really, really want? What do I really value? Jupiter in Taurus is saying, expand your values. Venus is saying, let me receive what I value. So, you can see how this is just like building momentum. Like, the more that we know we have the power, the more we know we're using this wand, the more we know it's about our frequency, the more we want to double down on the truth of who we are and our integrity. And so we get the Venus square Jupiter, then we get the Mars square Jupiter. Mars is like, I'm ready, I will do it. I'm determined to create what I value. And then on the 28th, everyone mark this on your calendar. The 28th, the Sun, Saturn, and Mercury are going to come into a conjunction in Pisces. And this feels like a renewed spiritual contract. Like, if sure, let's just say we're in the warehouse and we give ourselves a space to see what's possible, and we understand even more fully what our role as a flashlight holder really is. And once we understand and let that land, like, you are the one that has the power to hold the flashlight of creation and to let yourself experience and express through that flashlight, then what's your life really about? What is your spiritual mission? What are your marching orders with Saturn? And the consciousness of that and the download of that and the commitment of that sets off a whole new trajectory. Maybe it's new, maybe it's not new, maybe it's just deeper and unquestioned and like it becomes like I once was talking to someone who's said that he creates mindsets, and he literally will periodically go into his mind and create a new structure and then lock it into place, and then he doesn't negotiate that. And so I was literally seeing like there are some deeper spiritual truths that we can lock into place right now that will be like foundational guiding principles that will manifest so deeply in the next parts of the cycle. And it's specifically because it's going to be the home frequency that we are coming from this point forward. So here in March, a new structure and relationship is forming for a conscious co-creative era. I believe that the commitment that we're making at the end of February is one where, listen, we realize, I heard, I don't remember where I heard this, like, you know what, listen, I stand on the shoulders of every person who I've ever read books from, every person who's ever created videos that I've watched. I stand on the shoulders of all of these collective voices and all of this collective wisdom, and it shapes my opinion or my subjective reality, and it forms these concepts that feel like they're coming from me, but they were shaped and formed through all of these teachers and books and mentors. And so sometimes I can't quote people specifically because I've already like transformed it within my own cauldron. And so please forgive me if I don't if I'm saying something, I'm not directly quoting someone, but they say that there are two awakenings of the Buddha consciousness, or there's two awakenings. The first awakening is the awakening through the personal ladder of consciousness. And that is like a pop out into an awareness like, oh my gosh, I understand. It's the personal enlightenment, you could say. And as soon as an individual is initiated into personal enlightenment, they immediately understand that there's no such thing as enlightenment, because until the entire body of consciousness is fully enlightened, because that personal enlightenment opens you to understand that the enlightenment of the whole is that we're a part of everyone, that we're in a co-creative experience with everyone in the sandbox. And there's no personal creation that stands objectively alone, that all of it is subject to the other of whatever, any other, because we have partitioned consciousness into these vessels, and because we move from this central body of experience, because we have chosen this type of experience, we are in a relationship with literally everything. And so I believe that the first couple of months really initiate us into that awareness. And now we're plotting a course for how to be in a co-creation with everything that's simultaneously walking around with their own flashlights. And so here we are into March. All the planets are direct. I don't know, actually, I think all the planets were direct also in February. I think we've had a couple of months of all direct planets, and you can see where these direct planets were kind of like pressing us, evolving us, right? So we start out March, and it's suddenly like, oh my gosh, I'm holding these cards, I am holding these elements, I get to like flavor the soup, I'm holding the power to play my cards. And March 8th, listen, as the planets move through the last degrees of Pisces, they're going to cross over Neptune, and Neptune is like standing on the very final degrees of Pisces, kind of reminding us of the larger warehouse that's available and asking us to open up even more fully to that reality. And so as these planets cross over that, there's a couple of ways we can approach this. I've experienced when I'm not like able to have enough energy to resource myself, Neptune months or these types of energies can feel really foggy and really tired, and I just want to sleep more, I want to dream more. It's harder for my consciousness to process the enormity of what's going on in the unconscious. In fact, Pisces and Neptune rule a lot of the unconscious, subconscious, the deep waters of looking within, the mythical spaces. And so we may actually find ourselves really wanting to explore the mythic. It won't be a period of time where we're feeling like sometimes during these types of energy, I'm comforted by the idea that on a long enough timeline, all of us will die and none of this will matter, and we're like swimming in the soup of existence. And like sometimes I'm comforted by that thought because the enormity of what this is can feel overwhelming. But there's like space in March to explore it to any degree that you want. I feel that on a collective level, March might be a little difficult for some of the collective that is resisting going into the unconscious. I think that the first couple of months may have granted the power to manifest to on a much more accelerated level, excuse me. And so some people might actually be retreating from their power in March. March will be a month where we could witness like people wanting to check out, people wanting to like go unconscious, go back to sleep, not like they want to put the wands down, like, ugh, this is a lot of responsibility, I don't want this. It feels the opportunity in March is to recognize that the human experience is multi-layered, and that whichever way that we want to experience March, there's no judgment here. So if you find yourself kind of taking yourself out of the game, maybe with like a cold or, feeling kind of foggy, these are Neptunian energies. Neptune can really obscure the physical plane, and it can make things feel like you don't have a clear direction. It can feel confusing sometimes. And it's because our focal point isn't really meant to be on really like small, specific, tangible, measurable things. It's actually meant to be taking in the warehouse as a whole and like reflecting on like the entirety of all of that. So, for some people, their psychic gifts can be really amplified. Their sensitivity to the collective could be really amplified. People could really just want to stay in their homes and like check out of the collective. Like, just keep in mind that these are all due to the amplification of the energy. Another way you can think about this, how sometimes people will talk about solar flares, where when the energy kind of spikes from a solar flare, how people will feel like symptoms from that. And some people don't. Some people are just like, yeah, I feel super clear and great. This is not a judgment call on like however you take it, but just be aware that whatever mode you decide to experience March, it'll be doing the thing for you regardless of how you choose to do it. It's just a matter of frequency, honestly. If the frequency you hold is one where you're like, oh, all things are happening for me, this is a beautiful period of time where I don't have to know the answers, et cetera, then you're holding a frequency of loving yourself or loving, like trusting and having faith. And that is really the best way to kind of approach energies when we're like, oh, like I'm just so confused, or I'm just so like not sure how to navigate all this. But the energy will start to clear up and take form and fire around the 19th when the sun enters into Aries. We are still going to definitely have some of that Piscean energy, but this is a moment where we are like, okay, I'm going to take the flashlight. I see that there's so much possibility here. I'm going to actually take this flashlight and I'm going to start choosing what I want to bring into form. And that's what the Venus conjunct Saturn really is. Like, yes, I desire to shine my light in these directions and to focus on these things in my life. And so when Venus takes that mode and Mars follows suit, we then are brought to the full moon lunar eclipse in Libra. And this is in some ways a beginning of a reshaping of our co-creative relationship. If because we're framing things so differently now. We're framing things from a place of personal desire, personal power, acknowledging that we are the ones that have the ability to choose. And so, yeah, it's funny because I'm suddenly getting references of like how this eclipse has shown up in like a lot of my clients' charts. Like, I believe that from that eclipse onward, there's a restructuring of a relationship paradigm, because we now understand that the frequency that we bring to the relationship and the way that we shine a flashlight on the person we're in relationship or the thing we're in relationship, that the way we shine the flashlight is impacting what we see. So let's pretend that we have a person that we love, but we are only shining the flashlight on the way that they procrastinate on going to the bank or something, right? The way that they procrastinate in their lives. And so we're looking at this whole person, but we're just shining the light on their procrastination. And we're like, oh, they like, that is not a helpful way to look and co-create with that person. When we shine the flashlight specifically on that, we're going to hold some kind of judgment, and it's going to close us from experiencing that person as a whole. And we're only going to create experiences where it looks like they're procrastinating. And so the full moon lunar eclipse is like, hey, wake up call. How are you shining light on them? Because that thing is impacting the way you're co-creating with them. That, like, take responsibility for the way you shine light on the people that you're in relationship with. And you could even imagine that they're just a reflection of you. So if you're looking at their like procrastination, you're probably shining it on them because there's a part of you that loathes a piece of procrastination within yourself. So that whole freaking cycle starts to become very clear by the end of March. And then in April, it's time to step into the dance that balances faith and determination. The determination is going to come from the Aries parts of us that are initiating, that are holding the flashlights, that are like actively like letting ourselves have ideas and allowing those ideas to sit at the table. That's going to be the determination. The faith is calling back that commitment we made as a flashlight holder and remembering that we've been granted this flashlight for a reason, and no matter how we use it, it's still going to operate. We're operating from our greatest good, or we're operating from a connected place. And so the dates to tune in for April, we're also going to have a Mercury retrograde in April. All the Mercury retrogrades are happening in fire signs this year, and fire signs rule the energy we have behind our passion, the starter influence, the energy that helps us to stay committed and stay in when like our heart truly needs to be committed. The fire also is like new passionate truths that surface from transformation or from going through hard things and or some kind of change basically. So just know that we are going to have a year where that passion and fire gets to be restructured in our system. And this is the first month where we start to see how we reorganize our relationship to that fire. And this is specifically the fire that ignites and starts new projects or has these new ideas. And I talked about how the North Node is evolving us through these new sparks, initiations, ideas, and Chiron is helping us to heal our relationship with these new sparks and ideas. So this is a month where that's really focused at the table. And so the Mercury retrograde starts on the 1st, it goes all the way until the 25th. So pretty much the entire month is like a reorganization of what I just shared. The Sun conjunct the North Node is an acknowledgement of, yes, I am holding the flashlight. Yes, I am the observer. I get to choose. I get to ignite. I get to initiate. It's up to me to create that and to bring it into being. I'm accepting my power. I'm accepting my fire. Venus is entering Aries immediately saying, I'm going to receive passionately this life. I'm going to show up for this life. The new moon solar eclipse in Aries, it's going to be conjunct Chiron. Chiron, I keep saying, is the place that's healing within us. It's healing the initiating force, healing the novel, the thing that's never been in being before. It's healing our relationship with something new that's never existed before. And so it's like sometimes, you know, in order for something new to come into existence that's never existed before, it takes quite a bit amount of faith to believe that it could happen, because that faith is not based on a tangible representation of it existing from the past. So we have to have faith that something new can form. And we also need to have the determination to allow something new to take shape even before we see it. And this is the reorientation that's happening. Can we hold that? Can we really show up to alchemize that so that something whole and new really can come to fruition? And Mars conjunct Saturn is doubling down on that faith. The Sun conjunct Mercury, that's a cazimi, that is like putting a lot of passion and fire into like forging that new idea into being. Venus conjunct the true node is saying, because this is what I desire to shine my flashlight on. This is what I desire to experience more of. The Sun entering Taurus is like, good, because now we're going to start laying it down the foundation. We're going to start bringing resources to it. As soon as that new idea blooms and blossoms, it's going to need something in order for it to continue to grow and exist. And so we start to allocate the resources to the new form that is now in bloom. Jupiter conjunct Uranus, this event, both of these in Taurus, this is the event where the sheer like movement and change and like creative fire of Uranus is activated even more fully with Jupiter. So you can see how early in the month we've got this like, we've got to have this determination. We've got to have this faith. we're going to hold this seed. We're going to nourish it. We're going to like care for it. We're going to believe in it. And now it's going to erupt and sprout and grow. And so just know that our manifestations, everything that we've been shining our flashlights on, that magic wand, is going to just suddenly start materializing in such a huge way from the 20th onward. Venus will feel this huge release when she conjuncts Chiron of like, this is why I'm here. This is what I wanted to receive. This is me accepting my nature as a creative. The Sun square Pluto is this awareness that a new era is truly materializing. The new fiber, the new fabric of our contribution is being integrated into that Aquarian reality. And the full moon in Scorpio suddenly completely shines light on our power to transform. Like, basically, it's like the fibers are catalyzing and transforming the collective, and we're releasing our it's like a mini death that happens, actually, where we understand that it was never really about only us anyway. It's always been about our ability to contribute to something larger than ourselves, to create that transformation for the whole. And so that full moon in Scorpio has us really seeing the larger picture of how we contribute to the transformation of our life. Then Mercury will move direct and it will be conjunct the North Node. This is clicking in right after we've seen that full moon, and we are committing even more fully to doing even more of this manifestation, or even more of this initiation from our spark, from our fire. Then Venus enters Taurus. She's receiving all of the tangible manifestations, and Mars enters Aries. Venus in Taurus, that's her temple. Mars in Aries, that's Mars's temple. We have both of those planets in their home temples, and this is like congruence locking in all at once. Like, what I desire is what my frequency is what I believe, is what I'm focused on, is what is manifesting, is how I'm being. So I see this massive like click happening, this massive congruence happening by the end of April. And then we have May. May is testing our ability to stay in the game with both receptivity and discipline. So Venus is in her temple, Mars is in his temple. We've been activated. We understand how to contribute. We're still holding our cards. Now May is saying, all right, you're going to hold your cards. You're stepping into the arena. Every single person is also holding cards. Are you going to stay in the game? How are you going to hold the cards and stay in the game? So we have, well, the first card that's played is one where Venus is like, well, I don't desire to experience that anymore. And so she throws down a draw 2 or whatever. And Pluto's like, all right, shift in the collective. Then as soon as she kind of throws that card down, Pluto begins retrograding and is like, all right, since you've come to this place, congratulations. This is like the peak of how much we're going to change the collective this year. We've come to, like, we've gotten us all online. We've gotten us all into our creator power. We've gotten us all into taking responsibility. We've gotten us all into integrity. We're clicked in. The force of evolution to change the fabric is now going to begin to edge back, and is going to help us to make sure that whatever we've woven in the last couple of months is exactly the way that we'd like it to be, because we still had certain levels of unconsciousness that we were evolving through over the last couple of months. And now that we're clicked in, Venus is saying, I actually don't really desire to experience some of this. Can I unweave this a little bit and do it over? And Pluto's like, sure thing. So Pluto starts moving retrograde, and we might find a desire to dismantle some of the things that we built. So if I was going to make this tangible, I have a goal to launch a free app in April. And I am super excited about it. I've found the platform. I'm dedicated to it. I totally have this vision. I completely see how it's going to come together, and I plan to launch it in April. And I imagine that once I get to launching it, I'll be like, wow, this is incredible. And I wish it would function a little bit differently. So I like tangibly, I might actually say, okay, now I'm thank you for the beta testing. I'm going to actually go back to the drawing board and restructure some of this app a little bit to make it even more like user friendly or even more like impactful or whatever. So that could be something that we become aware of on May 1st, and we dedicate ourselves for the next few months to doing that work. The new moon in Taurus is saying, because like in order for it to be resourced enough, we probably are going to need to have some of these to apply some of these resources, to apply some of this work to it and make these tangible changes, or maybe even apply more resources to it to build it even more scalable or stronger. When the sun comes into a conjunction with Uranus on the 13th, and then Venus, and then the sun comes into a conjunction with Jupiter, and then Mars comes in, like, listen, that middle part of May is going to be very strong. These conjunctions are amplifications of our consciousness around the ability to create, amplifications of our desires to create even more, amplifications of our ability to expand things, and an amplification of our desire to commit to our purpose. It's a very, very, very strong week for all of that. And when we finally reach like the end of May, the amplification of all of this commitment to change or awareness of our power suddenly puts us into a space where we realize we have a lot to learn, or we want to teach. It's somehow a space where we realize that transmitting information is actually the most impactful currency that we can apply ourselves to. And so full moon in Sagittarius, when the sun enters Gemini, we commit to this amplification of our communication, our teaching. We might want to take a class or learn something, but there's definitely a transference of information that becomes important. And so the Venus conjunct Jupiter situation is, okay, yes, like I want this, I desire this, I want to increase my awareness of this, I'm willing to put the resources to this, I'm willing to invest in this. Yes. And then we have Venus and Jupiter both moving into Gemini. And then what that means is, okay, now let's open up the channel ways. Let's like publish the thing. Let's offer the class. Let's enter the course. Let's like enter the classroom. And with Mars conjunct Chiron, this is where you are realizing that you have the power to take action on your desires and follow through with that. And it feels like such a massive healing by the end of May, because you're acknowledging that you do trust yourself to follow through. You do trust yourself to step up and share your story. You do trust yourself to teach. You do trust. And so there's a huge healing that happens here. June, we reach the top of our curve for the year and we understand. So the energetics of the year have up to this point have been like going up to the top of like a roller coaster, like and we've just been like growing and expanding, and oh my gosh, and I'm holding the magic wand, I'm holding the flashlight, and oh my gosh, I'm creating all of this from my unconscious. I really need to be conscious of this, and like wow, so much of that, right? And so when we get to June, it's like the first planet to sort of be like, all right, that's enough for this year was Pluto. Now we're going to start getting into other pieces that are like, okay, you got to the peak of your evolution for this year. Now let's take some time to integrate. The integration is going to be massively important because we've increased the energy so much. Let's actually let it sink in. And the planets that will be retrograding, Saturn will be retrograding by the end of this month. So this is kind of this moment that we're like at the top peak and we're like, okay, we got it. Like we got the lesson plan. We're doing the thing. We're teaching. We're sharing. The information is getting to the collective. Jupiter trine Pluto. The information's landing. The information is shifting my belief system. I'm changing what I'm aware of. The Sun conjunct Venus, I'm like receiving a lot of reception from the collective about the stories that I'm sharing. There's a lot of like social, like this is a good time for podcasts to go viral. This is a good time for like any kind of content creation to just like bloom and expand. The new moon in Gemini is like, oh my gosh, and now I've got this new way I'm going to produce content, or this new way I'm going to teach this content. Venus in Gemini squaring Saturn in Pisces, Venus is remembering her spiritual commitment that she's made to make sure that this isn't, that all the equations include me and you. My frequency is going to impact the way that I'm experiencing you. And I'm going to make sure I keep that in my awareness. Mars entering Taurus is, and perhaps I need to be building even more resources. I need to be committed to cultivating an even more tangible representation of that commitment. And this kind of brings us into a state where, in our consciousness, we get to a point where when we get clear on a new concept or a new theory or belief finally lands, we begin to see our life from a different place. And we begin to it actually feels quite tender. Like what I'm feeling from the end of June is that we get the awareness that life has always been this way. We've always held the flashlight. We've always been creating our reality. Our frequency has always been manifesting. It's just that our awareness of that was lower than it is at this point. And as soon as we realize this and we're really letting that information sink in, it suddenly becomes so emotional. And we start to, it's almost like we fall in love with the human experience all over again, because it's always been that way. And we never didn't have our power. We never weren't creators. We always were. And so there could be some grief in the misunderstandings that we previously held, some grief in a relating pattern that we now understand more fully, but also a tenderness and an openness to letting life sink in even more fully now that we know. And so I think that we hit kind of a real tender point at the end of June where we realize actually our mission, our purpose, the point of evolution, the whole reason I've incarnated is just so I can actually be in real time with what I'm experiencing. And then Saturn will retrograde in Pisces and say, good job. Like you made it all the way to 19 degrees Pisces. You've really done the relationship work of energy, or the energetic relationship work. Like stop with all of the backflips and all the efforting and all the contraction. Stop with all of that and just let the wild experience of life begin to flourish. And so even though this character looks a little bit worried, I actually see that she's just like letting herself experience whatever she experiences in real time. And she's not holding such a strong structure that's closing up what she's capable of experiencing, which includes a lot of emotion. So in July, we have that emotion continues, the receptivity continues, the ability to really feel the human experience continues and manifests even more fully. And the words are receptivity and curiosity in relationships brings the joy of deeper connections. So we have the opportunity to deepen our emotional connections in the month of July. And so it starts out with a Neptune retrograde. So Saturn just turned retrograde at the end of June. Now Neptune, it's kind of like the outer pressure is just releasing and saying, all right, you've done so much. You've grown so much in your faith. You've grown so much in your ability. Now just experience it. Let it sink in. Feel it all. With all of your new abilities, the most important thing for you to do is to feel the frequency of presence. And so here we are sensing everything, receiving everything, feeling everything. The new moon in Cancer, like Mercury enters Leo, Mercury's entering the space of the heart. What does the heart want? What is the heart? What's exciting? What's like the next thing, the next yes should come from a place of joy, because that's what this is all about. The new moon in Cancer, because when I like move from a space of joy, I spontaneously feel even more deeply connected. The sun, oh wait, Cancer something. Oh, so I think it's the sun trine Saturn. Yeah. I don't, that's so funny. This is like, because this is what this is my spiritual commitment. This is me fulfilling being with my life, receiving it, feeling it. This is my spiritual commitment. Venus opposite Pluto. And this is ultimately what is going to create the experience that I desire. This is me finding new locations to point my flashlight of intention. All through this month, we are like continuing to use all of our gifts, all of our abilities to manifest, but we're learning from it in real time. We're not judging any experience as bad or wrong. We're getting information from each experience, like, ooh, that was tender. That was amazing. So all of a sudden we are letting the grounded personal experience inform the larger legacy that we essentially set out earlier this year to bring about. And this is like where, like, if you remember, we started out the year thinking like, oh my gosh, like ultimately I'd love to create this and leave this legacy on the planet and be like a contributor to the fabric of society. Ultimately, I'd love that. Well, now this is the time where we get to really, really dial in what is unique about your heart. What's unique about your passion and story? What's unique about the things that you're deeply committed to? And that is the trigger that, like, it's like coloring your thread and igniting your thread and filling your thread with so much power, so that as you navigate the next part of the year, you're actually weaving that thread through every aspect of your life. But this is the moment where it kind of goes down all the way to the bones and gets like clarified through the fire of the heart. And oh, I see. Yeah. So then Chiron or retrograde at the end of this month, and even like, yeah, even the need to continuously like heal our good ideas. Like it's almost like, okay, I get it. I have wonderful ideas. Some of them are great. Some of them will come to fruition, but even that need to commit to healing that is sort of even lessening, because it's happening organically just through all the experiential reality that we're having. In August, the heart releases its attachment to old evidence, and like many planets will be retrograde in August. Saturn, Neptune, Chiron, Mercury retrograde, Pluto, like all of these retrogrades are saying, just let the past go. Let the experiences go. Let all of the evidence that you ever measured your life against go. Let it go. Everything you thought was true, maybe it's time to reevaluate that. So I think a lot of people in August might be really soul searching, because they just don't have the pleasure or passion for some of the things that they used and leveraged in a previous version of their life. And now, like, what's more important than ever is creating from this new authentic space. And so some of what we want to create will remain, because we've had consciousness of our authenticity our whole lives. And so some of those threads do want to remain in our lives, and yet they may be woven with new passion, new creative projects, new ways of expressing, new ways of delivering that passionate like message. And so let yourself be as flexible as possible in August, and let the only thing that is fixed within you be the message of the heart, the clarity of the heart. And Mercury will retrograde. It starts in Virgo, but then it goes directly into Leo. This is going to be the heart getting like restructuring what it's true. So even the fixed fire of the heart is going through a transformation. So if you feel concerned in any way about your loss of mental clarity or mental certainty during the month of August, please know it's partially because the universe is trying to help us release all these old programs. And the outer planets are all trying to restructure all the values and restructure. It's trying to unweave and pull apart the fabric of our culture and society, so that the new threads that we're going to be expressing can be woven and integrated in. And we're going to experience that on a microcosmic level as well. And so, yeah, my advice would be not to put too much pressure on yourself in August, and know that this is a great time for knowing that there will be some good, strong, forward, like if the arc of the year was like up, and then June was kind of a plateau, then July and August were kind of like a landslide. August is like this kind of moment where we're like, oh, I know that there's a whole bunch of growth that's about to happen. I know that I'm going to want to put my energy toward it. I know I'm going to have to really use my integrity, my discipline, all my tools, the power of the magician to forge upward with everything I know now. I know I'm going to take that responsibility, but not yet. I'm just going to play a little bit longer before I step into September. And September will start with a strong upward climb again, an upward climb that's continuously releasing the heavy past, the heavy layers. So oh, sorry. Okay, so here we are, and Mercury moves direct right at the end, and then Venus enters Libra. So we get, oh, can you mute yourself, please? So we get through August, we understand what's coming and we're prepared. As long as we didn't spin our wheels, the worst way you can use August is actually like trying to maintain some kind of certainty or control and really trying to like spin your wheels and spin your wheels and spin your wheels. That's going to use up all of the energy that you can collect being in a released state. It's like trying to hold on to a storage unit full of stuff instead of just clearing the storage unit out. And so just let yourself have this August in that way, and then know that you won't even spin your wheels in September. As soon as September hits, the rubber meets the road and your vehicle will begin to do that momentum that sometimes feels so good. So for people who love structure, September's your girl. For people who love unstructured chaos, August is your girl. September, focus on what really matters and all actions that will liberate us for what matters. So focus on what really matters, focus on what really materializes, and focus on all the actions that will liberate us so that we can focus on what matters. So we're simultaneously moving forward in September while we're liberating ourselves. So it starts out strong. Uranus, the energy that's trying to cultivate sustainability and change, it says, all right, you've changed enough this year. You've gotten the container as far as we're going to get it this year. Now just so the example with the app, okay, you've gotten the app exactly where you need it. Now you just need to do some content creation for your app. And so don't try to tweak the app anymore. Just fill in your library, fill in all the content, fill in your program, right? So September is like, all right, I will do that. And it may feel, since Pluto is entering back into Capricorn, it may feel like the old paradigm of business again, the old paradigm of like hustle and grind. Like we've had such a year where we didn't have to create from a space of hustle or grind. It was more about expanding our consciousness, attracting through our vibration, understanding that vibration frequency attracts all the fabric and experiences to us. But all of a sudden we're put back into the old paradigm again, where it's like, well, actually, if you do post on social media 3 times a day and you create content with hooks and like, it's like we have to go back into some of the formulas. And if you're finding that, it's not because you're going crazy, and it's not because your frequency was creating the old again. It's because Pluto is like, all right, listen, we're going to create a new paradigm, but in order for you to be positioned as a thought leader, you're going to use some of the old tools that are still valuable to launch you there. You just finished this beautiful app. Don't you want everyone to use it? So why don't you use some of the marketing strategies that you mastered the last 15 years of your life, or business strategies? Why don't you apply some of these strategies that have worked for people for a long time and actually use that to launch you into the thought leader position that flavors the tapestry the way that you know that you will. So it is kind of bringing in those old modalities again. And if you can condition your consciousness to understand that that's what this is about and plan your schedule accordingly, it's not going to feel discouraging at all. It's going to feel like, it might feel actually so good because this is something we're used to. It's like we've been manifesting new, and it's all been such a new game and like new awarenesses, right? It almost feels comforting to think that we can actually use an old system or program and it will actually work again. Like, holy moly, I thought those systems were dead for good, and they're not. And so September is like, yes, in some ways, unless you have some completely, I don't know, it just depends on how you're going to navigate it. If you're watching this still and you're still following along and you're still utilizing this as a tool, then yeah, you're gonna be like, oh, cool. Then I'll just follow a strategy. I'll join a mastermind and I'll do a challenge and I'll just like apply the formula and it'll be great. Or yeah, offer one yourself. Use some of the like business building Capricornian tools that used to work really well for you. They're going to work again in this short window of time. Not so much next year at all, but in this window, it will work. And so, because everyone's going to feel it and everyone's going to be subconsciously craving it. So you may as well be ahead of the curve and plan to deliver it. Um, as long as what you're delivering with the new moon in Virgo, what you're delivering honors the individuality of each individual. It's like, make sure that you're flavoring it with, I'll help you to create a structure that works for you. I'll help you to, you're like very bespoke, very personalized, because everyone has just gone through this evolution where they don't want to try and fit into cookie cutter boxes of industries anymore. We all want to just express from our individuated self to add to the tapestry, right? So make sure that you're using the old to help people to launch into that new. Like I could, if I, in the case of the app, I could say, hey, I just launched this cool app. If you're interested in launching an app, I can help you launch a personal app that's white labeled just for you. Join my workshop. So that's like a workshop that is going to propel them into a unique expression of themselves to impact the collective, right? So, all right, that's just an example. All right, something to note, September 4th, Mars will enter Cancer. Now, Mars is going to begin slowing down. It's important to note how you feel while Mars moves through Cancer, because Mars will retrograde through Cancer next year. And Mars is not really thrilled to be in Cancer. Mars in Cancer can bring up a lot of like wanting to protect the vulnerable, feeling emotionally reactive to the vulnerable parts of ourselves. It could bring like emotions and feelings that erupt and affect our behavior. So keep in mind that we might need extra support with our emotions, and we need to be conscious of not acting from a highly reactive and emotional state to protect our vulnerability starting on September 4th. And it's going to be a longer cycle because Mars is slowing down to station. And this is also the place that's going to get restructured in January of 2025. So there are some things that are going to be kind of laid down in September that we're going to have to revisit next year. So just keep that in mind as well. Let's see. I only have a few months left. So it definitely, I think I said everything I need to say about September. Honestly, I'm like looking through this. I'm like, okay, when Venus enters Scorpio, all right, let's talk about this image for a second. We're saying yes and we're saying go, and we're really bringing a lot of our like determined passion and attention to this, but we're doing it from a really whole place. And we're doing it from a place where we can see the long-term trajectory. And we've learned so much this year, and we know we have this window of time between September and November to just do it. And so this is like, I'm holding this like angel of truth, and I know who I am, and I know what I'm capable of, and I have the energy to do it. I'm just gonna do it with a lot of awareness and determination. So then October, we're balancing the equations of our relationships, and we're clearing the last of the old. So the Jupiter, so we have all these planets retrograde, right? And now Jupiter's also retrograde. So this is like real deep like pulling back into the archives. We're pulling back into the archives of everything. It's like there's a, the metaphor is like we're about to move on to a whole new house in the country, but there was this old storage unit that was full of our like grandparents and parents stuff, and we've been putting it off and putting it off. But now, if you're really going to be liberated onto this next journey, you need to liquidate the storage units. You need to find all of the back alleys and back doors and like back foundational stuff. If you've got unfinished business with your like exes, or you've got unfinished business of any kind, focus as strongly as you can in October on clearing that up. Do not sleep on this. You will not regret it. You will be so grateful. And it's not a time for a lot of forward momentum anyway. You're not going to be forging new territory in this last part of the year. All of the growth in new territory happened all the way up until pretty much until September, even when we were in that little gully. Now it's like, okay, enough growth. Now that we know where we're going, clear it out, go to therapy, clear out your emotional baggage, investigate that pattern that keeps coming up and getting triggered, investigate like the drawers in your office that are filled with your daughter's stuff from when she was 2 that you just, whatever, like clear it out and do not delay. Bring yourself to it. And it's putting you in, it's because imagine that you're in the warehouse and you're seeing all the possibilities and you have your flashlight. The brightness of your flashlight is completely dependent on how much energy your vessel can put into the flashlight. And if your energy is being bound down by old, investigated emotional and karmic material, the light that you have available to you will be just a little bit more dim, because it's actually turn the light, instead of looking out there, turn the light in and look inside the storage units and be like, oh no, we can totally get rid of that box. Oh my gosh, that's infested with mold. I was saving that, but let's throw it away. This is the best way you can use the month of October. Just spin out the energy and clear it out. Bippity boppity boo, like just turn the lens inward. And for people who are really forward focused, it could feel really challenging, but I see it being really liberating if we just give ourselves permission to do that. Then let's see, we get to Mars trine Neptune. Okay, there's a few things on here I probably didn't need to include, but yeah, so Pluto is going to begin moving direct on October 11th. It's not going to enter Aquarius again into November, but we're going to feel the like, oh, it's time to go. Like the deadline is approaching. I've got to get this done. Now, in November, peace of mind comes when we are truly present with what is. And we've got that Scorpio. Listen, let's say that you're turning your flashlight inward, you're finding the like storage units, you're clearing out the mold. Peace of mind comes from saying, so there's a little bit of mold. Let's just do what we can to clean it up, because it's not going anywhere by me ignoring it. So we can have peace of mind by being truly present with what is, and just letting what is dead be dead, just letting what has passed have passed, just letting ourselves shed, letting all of the just letting what is be, and resting in that truth, and no longer resisting increasing your awareness because you're afraid you will become aware of something you can't accept. That's the energy of November. How can you just increase your self-awareness and hold a level of self-acceptance at the same time. I accept what is. I'm aware of what is. I accept what is. I'm aware of what is. I accept what is. As those 2 meters rise, your frequency rises. And as your frequency rises, the flashlight gets stronger. And as the flashlight gets stronger, what you're able to see in the sandbox increases. This increases your opportunities. This increases your possibilities. It increases the amount of excitement you can bring to charging forward. And so hopefully this entire year has been increasing your awareness and increasing your acceptance. I know there might have been some years where or months where the awareness increases and we decrease our acceptance because we're like, oh, but this is a year where just let the light of consciousness continue to increase your awareness and just keep accepting. Yes, I have that responsibility. Yes, I have that possibility. Yes, I did create this. Yes, I've been ignoring that. Yes, I do look at that and shine my light on that thing. Like the more of that, the more you'll be prepared for that wand of creation from your frequency to be put back into your hands in November. And even though it's put back into our hands in November, where Saturn moves direct and Pluto moves back into Aquarius, even though we've got that, we're still like, whoa, like, oh my gosh, if this is all true, then what do I want? Like, if all of this is possible, then what again is my ultimate truth? And so Mercury is going to give us one final retrograde this year in Sagittarius, in fire, in the mutable fire of discovering the epiphany, discovering the new larger truth about reality. And we were sort of in touch with this at the beginning of the year when we're like, wow, I'm a creator, I'm a thought leader, I contribute to the fabric of reality. All of that is still true. And we're understanding with more maturity and with more clarity, with greater bandwidth, with a release of the past. Pluto will never move into Capricorn again in your lifetime. It is full on in Aquarius for the next 20 years. The past is now gone. So we are forward focused and understanding with the power that we have. Knowing what we're passionate about is more important than ever. So Mercury gives us from the 25th onward the ability to really investigate that again so fully before we enter into the new year. So in December, we don't even have to know because we already know. We don't even have to know. Like we know. We don't need to be certain. We don't need to have a roadmap. We don't need to like get stuck in the minutia. We know that we will lead from our frequency. We will lead from with the flashlight of awareness. We know that we'll come across whatever we come across and experience it and feel it in real time. Like December is really this pausing moment up until the 15th while Mercury is retrograde. We're going to have Venus conjuncting Pluto again. We're going to have Neptune moving direct. We're going to have Mars beginning the retrograde. It's ending. The ending of the year is like, I can actually slow down. I know, and I don't have to spin my wheels. I know that the magic wand of my vibration and my frequency is going to attract every single experience to me that I need to have. The only thing I need to do is really be present with my most vulnerable parts and give them a seat at the table. I'm going to actively, Mars retrograde in Leo, I'm going to actively be a heart-led advocate, and I'm going to slow down enough so that I can be with every single part of myself, because that work is going to unlock every single experience I'm meant to have. And I'm going to do that with faith, and I'm going to do that knowing that I have an important role in the world and in my life. I'm going to do that knowing that my story matters, that my experience matters. I'm going to do that understanding that that's the highest commitment that I can make to my life. I'm going to do that because that is what I'm alive to do. I'm alive to have these experiences and to slow down and to really be with who I am. And we end the year with a new moon in Capricorn. And I believe that's like this little seed that she's holding of like, because everything's possible moving forward. And I don't even have to know. Like, I don't even need to know, because it'll just be. So, wow, that was kind of a lot. I'm going to stop share just for a second. I don't even know if people, yeah, some people are still here. If you're still here, oh my gosh, you're such a trooper. Like, that was a lot. And there was a lot that came through that was actually new and surprising for me. And I truly honor your year ahead. I hope that this overview serves as like a surf report of what is possible, and serves as a reminder when, if you ever start to feel frustrated with the momentum, or kind of lost in the weeds, or stuck in a rut, or wanting to make change for change's sake, I hope that you can lean back on this reading, or at least maybe something that I shared with you, so that you can increase your awareness of what's going on and what's possible, and how to accept that in your own life. So much love to every single person that's watching this, to every person that hasn't watched this. So much love to every ripple that happens from this recording, and for everyone that's alive during this year. I am truly grateful to be able to have the gifts that I have to express in the ways that I'm able to express. And I deeply hope that somehow the flavor of my thread of existence has impacted and woven within your life in a meaningful and impactful and important way. With all that, happy 2024, and I can't wait to see what happens.